The most expensive airplane in aviation history, a fantastic flying saucer capable of overcoming any air defense system and delivering a deadly blow to the heart of the enemy. Meet today's hero, the B-2 Spirit strategic stealth bomber. The hot breath of the Cold War. A ghost plane born from the inflamed imagination of SDI hoaxers. A superhero left without a superenemy. So many mysterious myths, legends, and outright misconceptions swirl around the B-2 that it's impossible to determine what this plane is really about. A formidable winged vessel or a useless wonderwaff? But all that is secret will eventually become known. In 15 years of B-2 stealth bomber operations, enough information has leaked into the open press to draw certain conclusions about these aircraft. It is correctly noted that the stealth bomber's appearance seems borrowed from science fiction. Seen from the ground, the Spirit resembles a rushing black sheet, a flying manta ray.
A fantastic interstellar craft.
In profile, it is a true flying saucer, flat, sleek, and seemingly flattened by a sledgehammer blow, without the familiar fuselage and tail. Impressive. The strange shape of the aircraft is simply the flying wing aerodynamic layout, known long before the American stealth planes appeared. This layout has its own characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages. The lack of a tail does not at all prevent the flying wing from making turns and pirouettes. Contrary to a common misconception, aircraft do not change course primarily with the help of a vertical rudder. It only plays an auxiliary role. The main task of the fin is to stabilize the flight. The turn is always performed by banking the aircraft. In this case, the lift on the lower wing decreases, and on the upper wing it increases, resulting in the upper wing swinging the aircraft in the desired direction. Wing loading, one of the most important parameters in aviation. The lower the kg per square meter of surface, the easier it is for the wing to turn the aircraft. Accordingly, maneuverability is improved. The flying wing is great at doing pirouettes, but has no stability on course. The lack of a vertical fin makes itself felt. Controlling the B-2 would be impossible without the use of automation and an electronic flight control system. Numerous sensors constantly monitor the aircraft's position in space and output corrective impulses to the wing mechanization elements every second. It is fair to say that few modern aircraft can be manually piloted. The same statically unstable Su-27 is also impossible to fly without the help of automation. A similar aircraft existed 70 years ago, the German fighter-bomber project Horten 229. The Horten brothers chose this layout based on their personal preferences. A smooth, streamlined wing aircraft completely matched their ideas about a high-speed jet bomber. It unexpectedly turned out that the 229 had another, no less important quality: reduced visibility to enemy radars. It is possible that the specialists of the Northrop Corporation were inspired by the work of their German colleagues. The Pentagon spent $2 billion on an aircraft that cannot employ cruise missiles. Incredible! How could this have happened? American capitalists are pragmatic people. They will scrutinize every cent before investing it in a project. The strategic stealth bomber was under special scrutiny by Congress, and at first seemed like a fully justified decision with fantastic prospects. A mission that would require 50 to 60 conventional aircraft, attack, escort fighters, can be accomplished by just 2 stealth machines. The savings are obvious. The catch is that American congressmen and the military fell victim to deception, whether accidental or deliberate is irrelevant. Lectures on the creation of an inconspicuous aircraft were repeatedly given to people not too versed in radio engineering and the diffraction of electromagnetic waves. The luminaries of American science vied with each other in promising the practical implementation of such a project, a practically undetectable and invulnerable aircraft that does not require an escort or support assets. Flat shapes, lack of a vertical fin, widespread use of radar-absorbing materials, zigzag joints of parts. The huge plane appears on radar as a tiny bird. However, it's not that simple. The bomber's low visibility does not guarantee the safety of the B-2. According to eyewitnesses, the plane has been observed in thermal imagers at international air shows, and from some angles the Spirit glows noticeably in the IR range. Finally, the pilot of an enemy fighter can visually detect the Spirit, in this case, the helpless bomber is doomed. The risk of being detected, and therefore destroyed, remains high. No one in their right mind would send a B-2 Spirit alone into the engagement zone of S-300 SAMs or enemy fighters. Even where the resistance of the Air Force and air defense of the adversary is minimized, Afghanistan, Libya, regular F-16s do just fine. The superhero is too bored in such conditions. The U.S. Air Force received a conventional bomb carrier at an inflated price. No doubt, this is a serious aircraft capable of carrying 8,227 kilograms bombs on board and making a combat sortie from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri to Afghanistan and back, with a duration of 50 hours, including air-to-air refueling. If one disregards its debatable low visibility and incredible cost, the B-2 is not inferior to its legendary predecessor, the B-52 Stratofortress. The operating costs of the stealth bomber are much higher than any of the listed machines. The B-2 can only be based in a special hangar with an artificially maintained microclimate. Otherwise, ultraviolet radiation will damage the aircraft's radar-absorbing coating. There are not many airfields on Earth where long-term B-2 deployment is possible. According to official data, the appropriate infrastructure exists only at the Whiteman, U.S. territory, Anderson, Guam, Pacific Ocean, and Diego Garcia, Chagos Archipelago, 500 miles south of the Seychelles, Indian Ocean, air bases. The most intriguing point. The maximum combat load of the stealth bomber reaches 23 tons. After modernization, an increase to 27 tons is expected. However, bombs cannot be poured into the bomb bay like concrete. In practice, the real combat load of the B-2 is within 18 tons. Regarding the comparison of the B-2 with its contemporary, the supersonic strategic bomber B-1B Lancer, there is no doubt. The Lancer looks more preferable. The B-1B has almost twice the combat load, 30-plus tons in internal bomb bays, not counting external weapon stations, can reach supersonic speeds, and has the ability to carry additional targeting equipment, Sniper XR pods for high-altitude bombing. The Lancer design also widely employs stealth technologies, while the B-1B costs 5 times less. The history of the B-2 bomber is a story of how not to make aircraft. Despite some propaganda role, testing of new technologies, and limited participation in military conflicts, these Spirits have done more damage to the U.S. budget than the Pentagon's opponents. The aircraft turned out to be exceptionally expensive. The cost of each of the 21 built exceeded $2 billion in 1997 prices, and ineffective in the conditions of modern local conflicts. The Su-35S Generation 4+ ultra-maneuverable aircraft, which is the pinnacle of the Su-27 family evolution, can now successfully counter the most advanced fighters of the probable enemy, created using stealth technologies, both in close and long-range air combat. Its high-precision homing missiles can effectively fight ground and surface targets. The multifunctional Su-35S is the most modern modification of the legendary Su-27 fighter, the symbol of Russian military aviation in the second half of the 20th century. It is a deep modernization of the 27th, which in terms of its characteristics, with the exception of stealth, corresponds to the 5th-generation fighters. In terms of its capabilities, the Su-35S surpasses most modern fighters in both close and long-range combat. The latest digital systems allow the Su-35S group to interact effectively in the air and solve the most complex joint tasks. The Su-35S has no restrictions on angles of attack and is super maneuverable with high controllability. These characteristics, as well as the ability to use long-range air-to-air missiles, significantly increase the aircraft's combat potential. Externally, the Su-35S is virtually indistinguishable from the Su-27, but significant changes have been made to the airframe. Its structure has been strengthened to increase the maximum takeoff weight and service life of the aircraft. It also made it possible to carry more fuel on board. The record range of more than 3,500 kilometers was achieved by placing fuel tanks in the fuselage and wing consoles of the airplane. Sponge-shaped polyurethane foam is used to prevent kerosene from moving inside the tanks during flight under the influence of overloads. One of the key innovations of the 35th compared to the previous machines of the family is a more powerful engine with increased thrust, a modification of one of the world's best engines for frontline aviation. It is this power plant that allows the Su-35S to develop supersonic speed without using afterburner mode, which is one of the requirements for the fifth generation of fighters. The airplane has a maximum ground speed of 1,400 kilometers per hour. The steerable engine nozzle makes it possible to fly in unique modes, such as short takeoffs from damaged runways. In the sky, the Su-35S is capable of performing figures seemingly contradicting the laws of physics. For example, only the Su-35S can do a dead loop with a minimum radius, practically turning on the spot. And this is not just a beautiful drawing in the sky, but a maneuver that gives unique advantages in combat. The most important difference between the Su-35S and its sister generation 4+ fighters of the Su-30 and Su-33 families is the availability of 5th generation avionics on board. The Su-35S is equipped with the Orbis radar control system for detecting, tracking, and measuring the coordinates of air, ground, and surface targets day and night. Orbis is equipped with a passive phased antenna array with an electronic beam control system. It can simultaneously detect and track up to 30 air targets and fire at up to 8 air targets simultaneously. The phased array locator can detect targets in the air at a distance of up to 350 kilometers and see even such complex targets as a helicopter hovering in the air. The Su-35S's highly effective electronic warfare system includes an active jamming station for group and individual mutual defense, anti-radar missile guidance equipment, radar and laser irradiation, and missile attack warning systems, as well as a decoy ejection machine. There are no analog instruments in the Su-35S cockpit. All information is provided to the pilot on LCD indicators. In case of failure of one indicator, the system duplicates it to the neighboring one. Also, in case of failure, the entire electronic control system is duplicated. New controls have been created specially for the Su-35S, the main functions of which are concentrated in 2 levers. For the first time in fighter aviation, the Su-35S utilizes the lead slave scheme, when the group commander has full information about the other aircraft, the amount of fuel, weapons, etc. The Su-35S fists are highly effective guided air-to-air and long-range air-to-surface weapons, unguided munitions, and a 30mm air cannon. The maximum combat load weight is 8 tons on 12 suspension units. Production of the Su-35S fighter is one of the priority programs of Rostec's United Aircraft Corporation. Serial production of the Su-35/35C is being carried out at the Komsomolsk-on-Amur Gagarin Aviation Plant. Today, the aircraft is supplied both for the needs of the Russian Ministry of Defense and foreign customers. The Su-35S have excelled in the Syrian conflict, performed tasks in the air defense forces, and recently accompanied the Russian president's No. 1 flight to the UAE and Saudi Arabia.